to the Michael Opitz Show. Today we're in former Congressman Bob Barr's office, candidate for Congress in Georgia's 11th District. And we're talking with Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who serves as sheriff in Maricopa County, Arizona. And prior to that, he served with the DEA for 25 years. Well, we're very pleased to have this conversation with both of you, and thank you for your time today. Sheriff, do you have any comments regarding your appearance here in support of Bob?
Well, I've known Bob for several years. He came down to Phoenix to assist in one of our cases, and becomes highly recommended at that time. And I heard he was running for Congress, and agreed to help him. We need more people like him. By the way, he's, I guess you never say ex-congressman, once a congressman, also always a congressman, but I guess he took a little time off to come back home and see what other people really feel. That's a great advantage, to have a break and see the other side. And then when you go back, you maybe get a different perspective. So I think that's a big advantage that he has. And he's a former U.S. attorney. I spent 30 years in the federal law enforcement programs, the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration. Then I was a cop in Washington, D.C., which is federal. Then I was in the Army during the Korean War, that's federal. So I had a little federal hat prior to becoming sheriff in 1993.
Bob, do you have any additional comments?
I'd just like to say that I'm absolutely delighted and honored to have Sheriff Arpaio travel all the way from Phoenix, Arizona to the 11th District here in Georgia, and to do so in support of my candidacy to return to the House of Representatives. As the sheriff said, I've known him for several years and was honored a number of years ago to help with some legal matters out in Arizona for him and the then county attorney. And we've maintained close contact over the years. And when I asked the sheriff a while back if he would consider coming out here to campaign for me and do a fundraiser for me, he's not the kind of guy that hesitates and checks with his advisors or looks at the polls. He said immediately, absolutely.
Sheriff, you were the most recognizable sheriff in America, and by many accounts, also the toughest sheriff in the United States. What is it that sets you apart from other sheriffs across the country?
I don't want to be egotistical, but when you said the United States, I think they know me in every country. I've been on at least 4,000 profiles all over the world. In fact, if you go anywhere outside the United States, just say, I'm from Arizona, that's what they know, sure. I'm not bragging about it.
No, you're not.
But the reason I say that, because almost, at least every week, I have foreign television journalists coming to interview the sheriff. They don't know who the governor is. So why do I waste my time talking to someone in China or Russia, or even New York, by the way? I get a lot of national attention. Why would I do that? Typical politicians would say they can't vote for me in Italy or New York or so on. Well, one reason I do it, I want everybody to know, if they do come to Arizona, which many people do, even from foreign countries, they know they have a tough sheriff, so obey the law. The other political thing, especially in the United States, many people move to my county, or at least the snowbirds visit. So they already know who the sheriff is. The third reason, I don't have any trouble raising money, even though it's the sheriff's race. So these are, and it takes time, believe me. It takes time to talk to the media and try to get your job done, which means I have to work about 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. But, so I want people to know who I am, where is Maricopa County, Arizona, and understand that we have some tough law enforcement in that area. So that's one reason I do it. I'm not running for president. is running for sheriff, which is a very honorable position, elected, and I could never survive as a chief of police or as a federal bureaucrat and have to work for somebody other than the 4 million bosses that I had, that I worked for, that live in Maricopa County, and I can make the decisions like that. I don't have to worry about bureaucracy. I hate bureaucracy. I hate meetings. I hate position papers. I just like to, if you want to do something, do it. And I'm not exceptional. Come on. I don't have all these degrees. I'm not a lawyer, nothing against lawyers. But I'm not a lawyer. You know what? How do I survive? I'm a senior citizen. I survive by common sense, and life experience. That's it. I've done it my whole life. The other thing, I always worked hard, no matter what I do. Sometimes I go too far, maybe, in my whole life. But I've always been successful by working hard, not who you know, how many degrees you have. It's just hard work, and that's how I survive. But I have to say there's one more element with me that drives me. Other than all that, I'm a fighter. The more they go after me, the more I fight back. So if they want to keep going after me, I'm going to keep running and running and running. All those activists and the Attorney General and the President, they were smart. If the President was smart, he knows who I am. I won't get into his problem. He would invite me to the White House. So we got the greatest sheriff around. He's 82 years old. I would hope that he retires and spend time with his family. But I also want to give him be a little advisor on certain law enforcement. We love this guy, and then I'll say, hey, time to go. But when they go after me, I'm not going anywhere. So that's the only little character trait that I have other than common sense. So that's what drives me.
Well, you and Bob have some definite traits in common. Bob is a formidable U.S. attorney who didn't hesitate going after lawbreakers in both parties as well as drug smugglers. So if you two can team up in any kind of way once this election is over, no telling what will happen. But Sheriff, what is the most difficult challenge you face in protecting the citizens of Maricopa County?
Well, there's a lot of challenges. Sometimes I don't call it challenges. Other people may. But I think if you look at my 21 years, and also, would I do something different? Not really. I made a couple of mistakes when you're talking about hiring people, the typical personnel. As far as my programs, I don't think I'd back down. I think I'd do it all over again, including immigration, the way I enforce immigration. I didn't do anything wrong. My deputies are not racist. And what burns me up, there's always that political thing in the background, always the politics. I know I have to deal with that. In a way, I'm a politician since I'm elected. But it's sad that politics enters, especially with this administration. Almost everything you do is always a little politics, corruption, arrogance.
Many responsible people have questioned Barack Obama's constitutional eligibility to serve as President of the United States, and you formed a cold case posse to investigate his eligibility to serve as President. What are the key points of your findings so far?
First of all, thank you for asking me that question. You're a very brave person. to ask. Not many people ask or even respond.
I have some very brave friends.
Huh?
And I have some very, and Bob Barr across the table is, I count him as one of those. So some reporters say that they conduct unbiased interviews, and they don't. I'm not going to say that I don't conduct an unbiased interview, because obviously I'm biased in Bob Barr's favor as well as yours, but you deserve to have the time to have that response to that
Well,
question.
don't be afraid to ask.
No, I'm not.
Whether it's biased, controversial,
Yeah,
I'm always ready for the answer.
I
And
know.
I don't have to do position papers, study. I never prepare a speech. I just talk. But to answer that question, what I was trying to say is a silent majority out there. And I know why you asked the question, and you're probably part of that silent majority. Forget your show. But this is a tough one. Very tough. I have to explain it this way. I don't care where the president is from. I didn't start this investigation to see whether he's here legally or not. It has nothing to do with it. I started this on a document, a government document that we feel is forged. This is a forged document. And nobody can understand that. They don't want to understand. We worked hard, and I used my posse because I knew everybody would go after me using taxpayers' money. They would try to destroy me for using taxpayers' money to look into this fraudulent government document. That's it. But I can't get anyone, no one, that wants to talk about it. And by the way, I held 2 press conferences on this. The only thing the media wanted to know was go after me. Why are you doing this when they had all the evidence on the wall? They didn't want to. They didn't care about the evidence. What are you kidding? Fox and all these national shows. This is off limits. Believe me. Nobody wants to talk about it.
I know one of the members of the Madison Forum here in Atlanta, David Weldon, took this case of Baraka's eligibility to the lowest level administrative courts in Georgia. And that went on very, very quickly. The Fulton County Superior Court and the Georgia Supreme Court, and none of them would rule on the evidence. And the point was, just one point, not his birth certificate, but natural-born citizen, because under the Constitution, the meaning of the natural-born citizen, according to Detail's Law of Nations, both parents must be citizens prior to the birth of the child to be a natural-born citizen. So on that case alone, so it's the first time that all the evidence was admitted into any court, but the U.S. Supreme Court refused to hear it. Bob, do you see any legal options that the sheriff has with the evidence that he's gained, such as elections in Maricopa County, and from a person who is not eligible to be president?
Of course, I'm going back to my days as U.S. Attorney, and then again in the Congress, particularly as an impeachment manager, I frequently was posed questions by my detractors. Why go after the president? You can't win the case. Or why proceed with the impeachment when he's already well into his 2nd term? And after all, let's just wait it out. Sometimes when we were investigating and then prosecuting particularly controversial cases, such as a case involving a sitting congressman or local officials, our detractors would say, you're jousting at windmills. Well, when you're standing up for the rule of law, particularly if it's a constitutionally based issue, it's never a windmill. These are very, very important issues. And it's important what the sheriff is saying beyond simply the case itself. When you have a document as important as the purported birth certificate of a person who either seeks to run or has been elected to the highest office in the land, for which that is a prerequisite to serving, then the American people need to know that. We need to know why that happened, how that happened, so we can take steps to ensure that it doesn't happen again, even if it might be a situation where the courts are simply not interested in it from a practical matter. So it does have intrinsic importance to the fabric of our government and our legal system, what the sheriff is talking about.
If a person is not eligible to be president, then it seems to me that impeachment would not be a recourse, but it would be a law enforcement issue, because if we found that anybody was an imposter, whether they're pretending to be a colonel in the military, and I'm a former special agent with the OSI in the Air Force, or if they're an imposter in any other government position, that it would first be a law enforcement position that person would be apprehended.
I'm not sure I'd agree.
How would you filter
I'd
that?
almost reach the opposite conclusion, that it is more an issue, if the facts bear out, it is more of an impeachable issue for impeachment consideration, because the offense, the high crime and misdemeanor in the language of the Constitution, would be an individual breaking the law every time that person sets their hand, signature, and seal to a document as to which they are fraudulently representing themselves to be something they're not. I think it could be the basis for an impeachment inquiry.
I'm the law enforcement guy, the investigator. It's up to me to obtain the evidence. On the other hand, the prosecutor, it's up to them to decide whether to go further and indict or whatever. And also, I don't have subpoena powers. It's up to a prosecutor to do that. And so I can only do so much. The other issue is that we're trying to do is let Congress look into it, let them have hearings. And what amuses me, they'll have hearings on hookers in Colombia with the Secret Service. They'll have hearings on whether you feed them steak or GSA, what do you feed them? You should be feeding them chicken. What do you spend on all this money on? They'll have all these hearings, and we got one of the most important situations in the United States, and they will not have a hearing. They'll talk about Benghazi and everything else. They will not talk about this issue because I'll talk to some congressman, and it's the old story. We don't want to be called a birther. This is bad for getting reelected. So I hear it. So okay, I just did my job. The only thing we haven't found out yet, and we have our ideas. They're not going to be nice. Who's behind it?
That was going to be the next question that I was going to ask.
There's no doubt it's a fake document. Sometimes in law enforcement you like to find out who did it, right? But that's something a prosecutor can assist with subpoena powers and so on. So we have other things going that I can't talk about. Might be successful, may not, but if we are, birth certificates look like minor league. But I don't know, I don't like accusing anybody of anything until I have pretty good evidence. There's a lot of rumors out there, a lot of theories, but you have to operate on facts and evidence, not rumors. So I took it on. You know when I took this on? I've been around a long time. I'm not the smartest guy, but I don't think I'm the most stupid guy. Do you really think that I would breeze through this? If I took this issue on, I knew I'd be blasted by everybody. But the only reason I took it on, the Tea Party, the famous Tea Party, 200 of them came to see me. Well, they had 200 signatures. The big boys came to see me and said, "Sheriff, you're our last resort. Please look into this." So I had to make a decision. Do I throw it in the wastebasket, forget it, like everybody else? Or do I really look into it? I decided to look into it. 2 years, every day. 2 years, my guy had been looking into it, going to Hawaii. It's not just a document, which everybody knows is a fake. Remember, the president put that fake document around the world. It's a birth certificate. Where's my jurisdiction? I'm just a little old sheriff in Maricopa County, but see, that's my jurisdiction in a way, because if you can prove that illegally, all those votes are all screwed up. So in fact, somebody votes in Maricopa County too, I think. There are some people that vote. But nobody really hit me on jurisdiction. A couple meetings, but that was it. So it's frustrating, but you know what? I go home at night, I look in the mirror, I did my thing, took some hits on it. But it's sad, and I worked in Washington. I know all about Watergate. I worked with Klein Hughes, he was an Attorney General, a good friend of mine, G. Gordon Liddy. We closed the border in 1969, Liddy and I, under Nixon Operation Intercept for 2 weeks. We stopped all drugs coming across because the president sets the tempo. The president said, we're going to stop this drug traffic, we're going to send Mexico a message. So it worked a couple of weeks anyway. But, so I know how the government operates. And working overseas as a director in the Middle East, Turkey, Mexico, I know about CIAs, OSI, CIDs. I have a little knowledge about State Department. I've been around. But it's just frustrating, today's environment, trying to get something done. And so I don't badmouth the president. I don't badmouth anybody. I try not to get vicious. I just take the hits and try to stay away negative, remarks.
Thank you. Bob, do you have any additional comments in closing?
Back in the day when I served as U.S. Attorney here for the Northern District of Georgia under Presidents Reagan and then Bush 1, I learned the value of having local law enforcement officials who understood jurisdiction, who understood principles of federalism, who understood good law enforcement as opposed just to doing what had to be done, the minimum that had to be done, to sheriffs like Sheriff Arpaio, who is tough, but for the right reasons. He's not tough just to be tough. He's tough because that's what it takes to properly represent the interests of his constituents, to properly be a steward of his constituents' monies. So he runs a very efficient operation. And he also cares deeply about the inmates over which he has jurisdiction that are under his care. Yes, he runs a very tough jail in a sense, detention center, but there's purpose to it. And the purpose is to help the inmates who are willing to help themselves to become better citizens. And he does this in a number of ways, to teach them responsibility and sacrifice and learning. The Sheriff Arpaio may not be unique among law enforcement officials in that regard, but I don't know any others that come close to the way he does that truly benefits law enforcement generally, his constituents, the taxpayers in Arizona and in Maricopa County, and ultimately the detainees that are assigned to his care.
Well, we appreciate your responses, and as I mentioned earlier, I am biased, and I'm biased for the truth. And every time I have had any conversations with you, Bob, you have been always right on the truth. And Sheriff, we appreciate your being here as well. We appreciate your candor, your insight, and There are many who applaud your efforts in defending good, responsible government under the Constitution, and that applies to both of you gentlemen. And we applaud your effort as well as wish you the very best. This is Michael Opitz, signing off.